What's up guys, this is M. And welcome to another Haikyu Fly High video. Today I'm bringing to you guys a tier list of all the SSR characters in the game now that we have all of them released. I'll solely be basing this off of their base kit, so just their 4 skills. This will not take into consideration any skill residences or memories. I will also be separating the tier list based off of positions. So you'll have one for each position, so it's easier for you to compare as well. So starting us off with the setters, we got Akashi and Oikawa in S tier. Now, Akashi, I believe, is the best SSR setter in the game. This is solely for the fact that he's able to force your spikers to crit whenever he does a critical set. So building him on as much awareness as possible will make him crit as much as possible and crit more. And your spikers don't have to build awareness on themselves. They can, focus on other aspects like power, attack, or strength, or attack technique, stuff like that. Now, another thing that he has is he's able to cleanse debuffs on your players and anyone on your side whenever they receive or block, and it's perfect. That also increases your team morale, and once you're in team morale awakening, Akashi gets more awareness. So everything just plays into his kit in terms of stacking awareness and helping your spikers do more damage. So now for Oikawa, he is in the same vein as Akashi, trying to get your spikers to crit as much as possible, except he does it a little bit differently. His main mechanic is the attack tempo buff that he gives to your players. Basically, whenever your side casts a spike skill, he gains 1 attack tempo buff up to 10 stacks. Each stack is 1% increased awareness for all your players, and if you unlock his training skill, that's another 1%. So 2% up to 10 stacks, that gives you 20%. His training skill also gives an extra 6% on top of that, so you're up to 26% at max stacks of increased awareness. He also has a ultimate skill for jump serve. This skill will allow him to perform a jump serve with 240% of his serve stat. And for the serve, he gets an increased 15% awareness, so that can help him even crit more. It's always nice to have an ultimate skill that's not a set or dump or a set in general. So giving him another option for attacking is why I probably put him in S tier. Now for the A tier setters, we got Kageyama and Shirabu. For Kageyama, I would almost put him on par with Oikawa, Practice Oikawa. The main issue with him is his ultimate is a setter dump, but he has a surge skill. With that, it's hard to place him in your rotation so that you can take advantage of both. Right, because you want him. If you want to use the setter dump, he has to be in the front line, and if you want him to serve, he has to be in the back line. Right. Because of that, that's the only reason why I put him under Oikawa. But other than that, his buffs that he provides to the team, they're almost, if not just as good as Oikawa's. While he's not able to give as much awareness as Oikawa to your spikers, he's able to increase their strength. So that's extra crit damage as well as increasing the spike power itself. So the power quick attack stat of the spiker, he's able to give that to your spikers and increase the damage that way. So next we have Shirabu, and to be honest, he's probably only going to be used in Shiratorizawa teams. He's a power setter, and he does have one skill that will help him buff power spikers by 8% of the spiker's power attack stat, but that's all he has. His other skills, he does have a setter dump, which is just a skill, not an ultimate, so power multiplier isn't that great. He also has skills that will increase his awareness and set stat, but because he's only increasing his own awareness, it's not relevant to your spiker at all, and it does not help them do more damage. So that's the reason why I don't think he's that great. I do put him in A tier just because Shiratorizawa has one of the best bonds in the game, and in my opinion, if you have Akashi or Oikawa and you're missing the last year Torizawa bond, I would put Shirabu in over them. The only reason I can see you maybe not having Shirabu for that fourth Torizawa bond team member would be is if you have a UR setter or UR Oikawa specifically to pair with that UR Ushijima. Now for B tier we got Kenma and Kanji. Now for Kenma, I do believe he is a really good setter. I love him in the show, but in the game he has some really good skills that he can provide, and buffs that he can provide for the team. It's just that with the amount of power setters that are available, he's most likely always going to be at a disadvantage. So that's the reason why I put him in B tier. But other than that, his skills, like I said, are very, very good. So if you're facing a team that's not a power team and you don't have a disadvantage, building a team around him could be a good idea and probably would be fun to play, in my opinion. He's able to increase your team's receive multiple times or with multiple stacks of his buff. The thing is, though, with that buff, you need to receive a perfect in order to stack that buff. So again, if you don't build around, receiving and have characters that can receive, it's going to be harder to stack that buff. So at that point, that's when you can make that debate or decision on whether you think UR Oikawa is better or having the Shiro Torizawa bond is better. If you're going to play Kenma as your setter, you want to make sure that you have a lot of characters that can receive well, right? He's also able to convert the result of a failed receive or save into a perfect. So that's really good. But again, you need to get the 6 stacks of that buff. If you're not building a receive team with him, then it probably won't be worth it. And now the same goes for Kanji as well, except for the blocking team side. You're not gonna see as many quick attack teams as power attack teams, just because there's only a couple quick attack setters out right now. But even so, with that advantage against power attack teams, he doesn't really do too much for your team. He does provide block buffs, so if your team is centered around blocking, or if you have a Dateko team, for example, he'd be perfect for that team. And if that's your main focus, then I'd say go for it. But other than that, he doesn't have a good set stat compared to the other setters that we have here. And he doesn't really help your team on offense that much either. So that's why I have him on B tier as well. So lastly, in C tier, we have Semi. Semi's an interesting one because he's not really a setter. He's mostly focused around serving. He does have a set skill, but it doesn't really boost any of your teammates' attacks or power or spike or anything like that. It's just a set skill. But his other 3 skills are focused around serving. Now, if you have Semi and you don't have a good server as a setter, then yeah, you can build him to be a pitch server. The only other reason I would use him is if you're trying to fill out the Shiro Torizawa bond and you don't have Shirabu. So that's why he's C tier in my opinion. Okay, so next up we're going to go over the wing spikers. So in S tier we have Iwaizumi and Tanaka. Both of them are pretty similar what they do. I believe they're the best SSR wing spikers in the game. I think mainly because they're one of the easiest to get and their support skills are also very good. Iwaizumi in one hand, he's able to buff your whole team's strength by 6%, which is pretty good for crit teams. And on top of that, he also increases zone awareness and strength. So buffs for himself, that's always good. And he also has a receive skill as well as obviously his ultimate spike skill, which again buffs his power by 15% more if it's a critical. So in terms of that, he has the best all-around kit, which I believe makes him S tier in my opinion. And for Tanaka, his kit focuses on his first spike of the match. So he's able to buff his first spike by, I believe it's 25%, and then additional 30% from his ultimate. So if you have him as a support wing spiker or maybe a secondary wing spiker, he's going to be good for that because he's able to boost his first skill of the match. And on top of that, whenever he does spike, the person that is blocking as well as receiving that spike gets your stamina reduced by 5. So also very good skill in that case. Another thing going for both Iwaizumi and Tanaka would be their bonds. So Iwaizumi has a really good bond with Oikawa with their bond skill. And if you have Nishinoya, that deployment bond with Tanaka, where when scoring increases team morale, is also very, very powerful as well. Now for the A tier, we have Goshiki and Kita. So for Goshiki's kit, he's able to increase morale whenever your team scores by 8, which is, again, like Tanaka's and Nishinoya's bond, very, very good. He also has a receive skill like the other two, and his power spike increases his awareness by 10% whenever he does it. So very solid kit all around. He buffs himself. He doesn't really have buffs for the team, which is why he's not, I don't think he's as good as S tier. But very solid wing spiker. He's pretty good on his own, so I think he's solid enough to be an A tier. So Kita, on the other hand, is not like the other wing spikers listed so far. He is mostly focused in on receiving, and because of that, I do think he is the best receiving wing spiker in the game, which is why I put him in A tier. On top of his receives, he also gives attack technique buffs to your front row, which is a very solid buff in my opinion. Now he does have that mechanic where he can't do critical actions, and that might put him at a disadvantage when put in crit teams, for example. Even so, if you're still starting out and you aren't focused on building a specific team, then he could be a pretty good filler for now, as again, he has one of the best support skills in the game. So next up in B tier, we have Ohira and Futakuchi. I think his name is Kenji, if I'm not mistaken. But Ohira, in my opinion, is also an all-around character, though he has more receive skills than spike skills. And he doesn't really support the team in any way. All of his skills buff himself. In my opinion, if you have a receive type wing spiker or receive focus wing spiker, you'd probably want him to have buffs as well to the other teammates, which he doesn't provide. So if you have him as your wing spiker, I would much rather have someone like Iwaizumi or Tanaka or even Goshiki. If you do have one of them, you probably would rather have Kita or something like that for those support buffs as well. Now for Futakuchi, he's also interesting because even though he's a wing spiker, he's focused around blocking. So he's kind of like your second blocker next to your middle blocker. To be honest, his skills are pretty lackluster in my opinion. He has support skills where he can increase the block stat of your blockers, but other than that, doesn't have any offense in any way. His ultimate skill is a block, and he does have a serve skill, which kind of contradicts what his kit is trying to do, because he wants to be in the front for most of the game, whereas the serve skill will have him in the back row. So putting him in B tier is the best option in my opinion. I think if you were to run obviously a Date Go team, then he would work really well with them, but in any other team, he is just decent. He's not going to give you the firepower that you need. Okay, now we have the C tier. So for the first two, Aran and Asahi, they are powerhouses in their own right, but both of them run into the same issue with their stamina usage and stamina consumption. Basically, especially at 0 dupes, you have them spike maybe once, maybe twice in one game, and then they're out of stamina, and that is not good. They have to be subbed out. So because of that, I put them in C tier. Obviously, if you do dupe them up, they'll have options to counteract that stamina usage, so they could be bumped up in that case. But as of 0 dupes, no skill resonances, they don't have that much of a impact in the game because they can't stay on the court for too long. Okay, and for Ginjima, he's has some solid skills in my opinion. He is able to power attack and is also boosted if he's in the back row. He's able to perform pretty good receives as he has receive buffs in his toolkit. The main thing with him though is that he has a skill that is based off of each receive tagged player, so any receive players on your side. And currently in the game right now, there aren't too many receive type players. Obviously you have your Liberos, and then if you choose to have a support wing spiker like Kita for example, or Hira, then I believe it could work. But in any case, just like the others, I'd much rather have someone like Tanaka or Waizumi or even Goshiki or Kita rather than someone like Ginjima, just because he doesn't support the team in any way other than just buffing himself. So he's a C tier for me. And last but not least, we have Terushima. In my opinion, I do like his kit. He's able to provide pretty good support buffs. He's able to increase the receive of your players on your side, and he also has a skill that will prevent you from losing a point if he fails a receive, so something like that is always really good. The main thing with him though is that he doesn't have any bonds to work with, and he's doesn't fit in any team per se. In any case, whenever he's on the court, you might want to have other wing spiker that would either fit the team bond or has a bond with someone else. He's a very plug and play type of character, so you can use him if you don't have anyone else. But in my opinion, you probably want to fill up those bonds way more than having him on the court. Okay, starting us off with the middle blockers, we have Tsukishima, Ione, and Washio in S tier. So first off, Tsukishima has, in my opinion, one of the best middle blocker kits in the game. He's able to provide buffs to your team, debuff the opponent. He has a quick attack spike skill, and he has a block ultimate skill. So he has a little bit of everything. When he's on the court, he increases the strength of your quick attack type players by 10%. And whenever he casts his quick attack skill, the next teammate's spike skill has awareness increased by 5%. So you get the awareness and strength increase there. He's also able to buff your block power of your side's front row by 8% of their own block stat. And on top of that, his ultimate provides a debuff to the opponent, which reduces their own spike stats by 10%. Now for Ione, he's built more so around blocking. He's able to provide a debuff to your opponent whenever he gets a perfect block, which reduces the next spike's power by 10% and increasing the stamina consumption by 30%. He's also able to increase his own block power depending on the number of block team members he has on the team. So if you're playing him beside Futokuchi or Dateko team, or even someone like Korai who has the block type tag, Ione will have his block power increased just because of that. His ultimate skill as well, if he's blocking a power spike, he increases his own block power by 9% additional to the 195% block power of his ultimate. And for Washio, he has a pretty good support skill where if he blocks, your next receive is increased by 20%, and if the block result is not bad, then his next block is increased by additional 20% as well. He also has a buff that stacks based off of your opponent, so if your opponent does a critical action, he gains 2% to his block and quick attack stats up to 5 times, so that's 10% in total. So if you're facing a lot of crit heavy teams, like the Ushijima, Oikawa teams, basically any team that is not in Arizaki, you'll be stacking this buff pretty quickly, and that could increase his own block and quick attack stats, making him stronger. Block ultimate isn't too bad either. It doesn't provide debuffs or anything, but he does have a multiplier of 220%, which is, I believe, the highest of an SSR, so he has a really strong block as well. Next up in A tier, we have Suna. Suna is a quick attack type blocker, but he also has some support skills that help his blocking. Whenever he casts a spike, he's able to provide a debuff called Misread that reduces the opponent's block stat by 10% for 8 net crossing, which is a really long time. And if the spiker is inflicted with this misread debuff, your size block gain an additional 15% of the blocker stat, so increases your whole team's blocking based off this debuff if the opponent has it. He has a block skill as well, which is 100% of his block stat, which is obviously not as good as the blockers I have there in S tier, but he's able to increase that based off of the debuff he provides to his opponents. Now for Kuro, his practice version also has some pretty good support skills. Unlike the other blockers, he doesn't have a debuff skill, but he has some really good support skills. He's able to increase your quick attack type player's strength by 16%. He's able to buff himself whenever he casts a spike, which is really good. And he has an innate increase of 8% to all your players' block stat as well. The reason why I put him in A tier is because his multipliers aren't as high as the other blockers that have an ultimate block. It is 170%, while the others are around 195, or in Washio's case is 220. But if you have other block type players in the front row, increases the power by 15% of the block stat, which is very situational. So I wouldn't put him all the way in S tier, but he does provide some good buffs to your team. Next up we have Hinata. I was debating on putting him top B, but for the protagonist buff, I'll put him in A tier. He's more so an offensive focused middle blocker. He doesn't have any block skills, which does put him at a disadvantage, but he provides very good offensive buffs, and his ultimate attack has a very strong multiplier. It has 235% of his quick attack stat as power, and if he crits, it's an additional 20%, so you get up to 255%, which is very, very high for a ultimate skill. He does rely on crit, so he does have a kit that revolves around increasing his zone awareness. He increases awareness by 6%, and whenever he does land a critical hit, it additionally increases by 4%. So you can get up to 10% awareness increase, and again, when you ultimate spike, if it's a crit, it adds another 20% power to that as well. He's best paired with a quick attack type setter, preferably Kageyama. Atsumu would do, but Atsumu doesn't crit, so it doesn't help him at all. The reason for that is his second skill increases his quick attack stat by 15% whenever his setter is a quick attack type setter. So for Hinata, I put him in A tier. If you do build him right and put him with the correct team, he could be an offensive powerhouse, but in a middle block, you're really looking for that blocking prowess. So that's why I keep him in A tier. Okay, for B tier, we have Tendo and Liev. So Tendo focuses on critting. This is more so for reflex. He increases his own reflex by 12%, and whenever he casts his ultimate skill, if he's blocking a crit spike, he also increases his reflex by 15% more. But other than that, he doesn't have too many supportive skills. He doesn't buff his team in any way, and again, he's just buffing himself. He has a skill that decreases his cooldown of his ultimate block by 1 whenever he performs a critical block, but again, that's very situational. You have to build him around crit. If you do, then maybe I can see him putting him up to B tier, A tier, but for the lack of buffs, I don't think he's all the way in A tier. If you do put him in a team with Ushijima and pair him with Ushijima if you get that bond, then of course he'll definitely be higher than any of these A tier blockers, for example. But for the most part, I don't think his skills make up for it in any other team other than Shiratorizawa. And for Liev, he is another quick attack focused middle blocker. He does have a block skill, but it's only 105% of his block stat, so you're only getting a 5% increase multiplier off his block. And his own buffs rely on perfect receives and a debuff. Whenever your team receives a perfect receive, it increases his next quick attack spike by 15%. Paired up with Yaku, he's very, very good. And for any other Liberos, you need to really make sure they have good receive stats so they're able to get perfects more frequently. His third skill is able to reduce the blocker's block power by 10% if the blocker has a debuff. The thing is, he doesn't have any debuffs in his kit. He can't provide that himself. So you have to put him alongside someone who can provide a debuff so that he can take advantage of this skill. Since he relies on other people doing the work for him, I don't think he's as strong by himself, but pair him with the right team, right teammates, and he can be a powerhouse as well. But on his own, it's a B tier. Okay, next are the opposites. So in S tier, we have Kiyotani, the Mad Dog himself. He is basically your budget Ushijima. You'll focus on building him as a power attack hitter. He also has skills that increase his awareness and strength, and also his power attack stats, so buffing himself is really good. When paired with Oikawa, also if you have Iwaizumi in the team, he has a good bond as well. The main mechanic that makes him really good is that whenever he uses his ultimate, the opponents that block and receive reduces their stamina by 10%. Stamina, like I mentioned before, is a really big thing in this game. You want to keep your best players on for as long as possible, and in this case, by reducing your opponent's stamina, they'll be subbed out way faster than normal. Next up in A tier, we have Daichi and Konoha. Both of these players share a similar role. They are both receive type players. For Daichi, he restores 3 stamina to the teammate with the lowest stamina whenever he receives, which again, stamina is very, very important. If you have him receiving, you'll be able to keep some of your players longer than normal. He's also able to increase the receive power of your side's back row by 10%, and whenever he uses his receive ultimate, the next power attack spike is increased by 15%. So if you pair him with power teams, he's going to be a really good support unit. He also has a power spike skill as well, so if you run out of options with your main spikers, he'll always be a secondary support spiker as well that could be available when you don't have any options. For Konoha, similar to Daichi, he has some really good support skills and buffs. He's able to increase your team's receive and save stats when he's in the back row, and if he's in the front row, increases your players' blocks and their spike stats by 8%. So depending on where you put him, you can use him for either offense or defense in that case. His ultimate receive increases your team morale by 20 when the result is not bad. This is very, very useful for teams that rely on team morale awakening, obviously for Kurodani. However, I don't think team morale boosting is as useful as the stamina Daichi provides. That's why, in my opinion, I think Daichi is a little bit better. But obviously, if you're trying to fill it for Kurodani team, you can have Konoha as your opposite hitter. He also doesn't have a spike skill, which again Daichi has. And again, if you want him in the front row to increase your player's block and spike stats, then that kind of disregards his typing as a receive type player, and you won't have him in the back row to be receiving anyways. All in all, I think these two are very interchangeable. You can use them similarly on whatever team you're using, and they both provide great benefits for your team. Now for Sasaya, he is like a mix of support plus power spiking. He does have an ultimate spike skill similarly to Kyotani, but he doesn't provide that debuff that Kyotani does. He's able to increase your team's blocks and also awareness and reflex. However, in terms of support skills, I don't think it's as useful as, again, Daichi's or Konoha's, where Daichi will give you guys stamina and Konoha will give your team a team morale boost. So that's why I have him in B tier. Now lastly, we have the Liberos. In S tier, we have Yaku and Akagi. In my opinion, Yaku is the best SSR in the game, mainly for the fact that he's able to convert his normal receives into perfect. So whenever he receives a normal, instead of saying normal, it's going to be a perfect. That means he's only able to get bad or perfect receives. And in this game where points are dictated on the amount of bad, normal, or perfect actions that you have, him giving more perfects than bads or normals is a very strong skill in my opinion. His other skills focus on increasing his own receive and save stats whenever your side does a receive that is not bad. Also, he's able to buff quick attack type players by 8% of their quick attack stat while he's on the court. So even if he's meant and built to be played with quick attack teams, even if he isn't played in the quick attack team, you can still play him and get the benefits of the perfect receives. For Akagi, well, he's not as great a receiver as Yaku. He provides very, very good support skills that either buff your team or debuff the opponent. Whenever Akagi receives or saves, your team morale goes up by 10, and whenever he casts his save skill, it increases your side's defensive technique by 4%. And his third skill, it increases his receive stat by 10%, and also whenever a opponent does a power spike, he gives them a debuff that reduces their power attack by 8%, lasting for 3 net crossings, And if the opponent spiker has this debuff on them when they spike, your side gains 4% defensive techniques for 3 net crossing. So based off of his kit where he can provide buffs, debuffs, and team morale, I do think he's worthy of S tier. Next up in A tier we have Komi. Komi has a skill that whenever his receive is not bad, he's able to reduce the opponent's team morale by 12. So similar to Akagi, he's able to, instead of increase your own, decreases your opponent's team morale. And if he performs a save, and that's not bad, all your players gain 5% basic stats for 1 turn. And his other 2 skills are his ultimate receive skill of 235% and an additional 30% if he's receiving a power spike. You could argue that Komi could be in the same tier as Akagi, but in my opinion, the debuff that Akagi gives to the opponent just edges it out slightly for me, so that's why I put him up in S tier, and Komi stays in A. Next up we have Nishinoya. So the first time he enters a court, he's able to increase team morale by 8, so that gives a quick advantage at the beginning of the match. He also increases your power attack by 15% whenever his save result is not bad, and whenever he casts his ultimate, if the received result is not bad, he reduces the cooldown of your side's next power spike skill by 6 net crossings. So this will help with obviously your power attack spikers so that they can spam their ultimate. If you don't have someone like Dupe 2 Ushijima, Dupe 6 Bokuto, you can use Nishinoya to circumvent that and also allow them to spam their ultimate attack. The issue with Nishinoya is that he does consume 20 additional stamina to perform this ultimate. So arguably at dupe 0, I will probably have to put him into B tier. If you do dupe him up, you can get him to 2 dupes. If you get his memory, that will circumvent the stamina issue that he has. And for sure, I would put him in A tier if that's the case. But dupe 0, he's a B tier. And lastly, we have Yamagata. So he is mostly going to be just used on your Shiratorizawa teams. He's able to increase his own reflex by 13%. His main mechanic is saving off of blocks. So if the other team lands a perfect block, he gives an additional 40% based off his save stat when he saves. This is very, very situational, and most of the time you don't want to be perfect blocked. This is, I believe, why he's not that great. But obviously, like I said before, if you're trying to fill out a Shiratorizawa team, then you'll probably have to use it just to get that team bond. So that's the end of my SSR tier list. Let me know if you place people differently, if you have any thoughts in the comments down below. If you have any videos that you'd like me to make, also let me know in the comments and I'll see if I can make that for you guys. So thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Peace.